What's going on, Sam?
Not much. How are you?
I'm all right. I'm all right. Are you at work?
I am not. No, I'm at. Well, I mean, I kind of am. I work remotely. I am. I'm actually at a library right now, but
Okay.
um, yeah. So
Okay, so I'm not going to keep you too long, but I believe you said you've been watching the channel, if I'm not
yeah,
mistaken, and you disagree with some of my viewpoints, right?
yeah. I disagree with some of them. There's a few issues on which we agree, but yeah, there's some mild disagreement just with some of your analysis about specifically the utility of the registry and the fairness thereof. So that's primarily where we disagree.
Okay, and like, can you give me a little more?
Yeah, so basically, the way I view the registry is it's just one element, it's one tool that we need to make sure we keep track of um, offenders once they leave prison or whatever wherever they're confined, basically to make sure that they don't in fact reoffend. And I've heard people bandy about the idea that the stats on recidivism and whatnot, that those are fairly low, and that's not actually true. The recidivism rate for sex crimes is like way higher than pretty much any other category of crime that you can nail. It's higher than murder. It's higher than, I mean, anything, any kind of property crime or anything like that. So I think keeping track of people that have committed those offenses is very important, and that sucks for people who may be falsely accused. And I've listened to all your videos, and I've heard, what you have to say and everything. And if that happened, well, that sucks. But in my opinion, the line, it's a bright red line, right? And if you're on one side of it, you're good, and if you're on the other side of it, you're not, right? And it stinks when you hear about kids getting put on the registry for sending out, naked pictures of themselves. But that's a case for more education, not getting rid of the entire, system of laws that's, designed to keep people safe. So that's where I come down on it.
So
Um,
where
yeah,
where where
that's
you
pretty much my
pull
view.
your information and the data that shows recidivism with people who commit sex crimes are actually higher than murder or theft or B&Es,
Uh,
like
from, yeah, from the Department of Justice.
from the Department of Justice? And what state did you say you were in? I'm just curious.
I live in Kentucky.
Okay. Um, you said if that is the case, with me, let me ask you, do you think that everybody that's incarcerated is actually guilty of what they're accused of, the alleged crime? I know it's kind of
Well,
rhetorical, but
I mean, that's kind of a loaded question because, of course, I believe that there are people that have been falsely accused, and there's people that have been on death row, and they've gotten a stay of execution, and they were ultimately exonerated by some kind of, DNA evidence or whatnot. So I understand that those things happen, but there's an old saying, they say prisons are filled with innocent people, right? And that's because no one, wants to confront what they did wrong, and people usually have an idealized view of themselves, and they'll try to paint their stories in the best possible light, but then you actually go and interview the victims, and you're like, oh, okay, uh, maybe I was being misled a little bit there. And I think that there's a little bit of showmanship that goes on, with people that are convicted of crimes, where they will try to say, oh, I was set up, or the system was out to get me. I think that the words that you used were, you said you were sucked into the system, and I just object to that. I I think that's pretty offensive, especially considering there are people who are genuinely falsely accused, and I think that does a disservice to them. So
hmm.
that's the way I see it.
So when you take that offensive, are you saying because you feel that I was actually guilty of a crime?
Well, I mean, I don't know. My guess is that there was some sort of, again, we've never gotten her side of the story. We've never gotten any supporting documentation. We've never gotten anything from the court. I haven't heard anyone's side of the story besides yours. So the way you tell it, yes, it sounds like you were set up. But again, that's in the absence of having any other kind of information to go off of. And, you don't get put on the sex offender registry by accident. There's a long, drawn out process that you have to go through. You don't just get thrown on there for no reason, right? I mean, we have due process of law in this country for a reason, and it applies to everyone. So,
Okay. So
so the answer to your question is I don't know. I don't know for you personally, but I mean,
got
I
it.
have to assume that you did simply because you were adjudicated as guilty of that offense. Yeah, I mean,
So I
it's sort
wasn't.
of self-evident.
So okay. One of the things that I wish is for the young lady, in my case, to actually come out and speak publicly. Now, my side of the story, it's only 33%. And then you have
Right.
actual court documents that is being prepared to be shown publicly, because a lot of it I really just got within the last few months. It's a lot of
Right.
stuff that blew my mind, stuff that I found out as an adult, but again, the court records, 33%, my story, 33%, but the story that I really wish would come out with public Q&A is the young ladies. So you're right.
Sure.
She need to actually come up and speak out in public, and she do need to face questions and answers and tell what happened that night. And I would actually
Right.
love that. Like, I don't even have to be a part of it, but I do want to
Sure.
comment on something you said, because I asked you a couple minutes ago, do you believe everybody, and I'm going to add to it, do you believe everybody that's incarcerated is actually guilty of the alleged criminal offense or crime? And that's also saying, do you believe everybody that's on probation or parole or in jail is actually guilty of whatever that may be? Now, you say you don't get put on the registry just because. So, do you believe the criminal justice system is racist?
No, I don't. I actually don't believe that. And the reason that I don't believe that is if you look at the percentage of people that are in prison for any given offense, let's just take robbery, for example. And if you compare that to the arrest numbers and the actual number of reports that came in. So let's say, in a certain area, you have 60% of reports of armed robbery involving, say, a black male or a white male or whatever, but we'll take, obviously we're talking about racism, so we're talking about black males, we'll say, and let's say that 60% of the reports that are coming in are for black males that are allegedly engaged in this crime. 80% or 90% or 100% of the number of people that are being taken to jail found guilty of committing an offense like armed robbery are black suspects. That, in my opinion, it wouldn't be 100%. It wouldn't be absolutely, because there could be other confounding factors, but that would be evidence. That would be prima facie evidence of racism in the system, right? Of police officers targeting black men unfairly, but we don't see that. That's the problem. We see the numbers of black men that are going to prison for certain offenses correlate exactly to the number of reports and the number of arrests that are being made, right? So those three things are inextricably linked, right? So no, I don't actually believe that the criminal justice system is racist. I just don't think there's any evidence to that effect, not in a systemic way.
So do you not think the criminal justice system treat people of wealth or of a Caucasian descent differently than they would of somebody that's come from an impoverished community, or black or colored, or maybe even be foreign? You think everybody get the same treatment?
So I do believe that if you have more resources available to you, you're going to get better legal representation. That's just the bottom line. Like, it is so expensive to fight a charge in this country that most people take plea deals, right? Most people will just plead down and whatever because they want to get out. So given the fact that unfortunately a larger number of Black Americans, for various reasons, are in impoverished circumstances, and I'm not commenting on that, of course, the brunt of that particular blemish in our system is going to fall disproportionately on them. Does that mean that it is in a targeted attempt to, incriminate them because of their race? I don't think that you can make that argument. I think that you've got two variables that are intersecting, right? And it makes it appear as if I guess what I'm saying is that the endogenous variable, the variable that actually accounts for what you're seeing, is not in fact race, right? The endogenous variable is income, right? So I would agree with you that if you are wealthy, you have a better chance of beating a charge than you would if you are poor. That's just a fact, right? But is that a function of racism? I don't believe that.
Okay, now let me ask you this. Do you think that people who have a little bit more money than others that may be guilty of a crime could actually pay for their innocence, even while guilty, while people that's innocent and telling you that they're innocent can't afford to pay for innocence, so it ends up putting them in a position to where they may be impacted by the criminal justice system for the rest of their life?
Sure. I mean, I would 100% agree with that. Matter of fact, I know of cases where that's happened, right? So I agree with that. It definitely happens. I will say that there have been plenty of people that are wealthy that have not been able to do that, and all of the money in the world could not hire themselves a lawyer that was good enough to, get themselves out of the charges that they were facing. So it does happen, but I don't think it's nearly as prevalent as you're making it out to be. Obviously, there's people. I mean, just take for example, like 2020, last year in 2020. I mean, there were tons of riots and whatnot, and right now, I don't think that any of those people that were charged with looting or rioting or disorderly conduct or whatever, a lot of them were poor. I don't see any rich people from Beverly Hills out running around stealing TVs out of Target or whatever. And a lot of those are they're not even being prosecuted. They're just being dismissed or they're not even being charged. So, I think that in a lot of cases it's prosecutors, right? You'll get prosecutors that are, hardcore, right-wing ideologues who are really tough on street crime and really tough on petty crime and broken windows theory and all that stuff. And then you get prosecutors that are, on the left and they prefer to go after, wealthier people for tax fraud or tax evasion or whatever, right? Because they think that that's the real problem in society is that, people that have a little bit more aren't paying their fair share or whatever. So a lot of times it's more a function of ideology, and you can't really extract that from anyone's decision making, right? So, but in the end, I think it all balances out because we've got a robust appeal system.
Give me 30 seconds. Let me open this door real quick, and I'll be right back.
Yeah, go for it. Yeah, no problem. Okay.
Okay, sorry about that, Sam. So, okay,
you're good.
You don't see wealthy people breaking into Targets and rioting and stealing TVs and things like that. So, what do you think about what do you think about what happened at the Capitol?
At the Capitol? Oh, I thought it was terrible. I mean, I think that all those people should go to jail, and they are. A lot of them are in solitary confinement, last I heard, which they should be. So, yeah, I'm not okay with that. But
okay, so we talked about a whole lot, but I really want to get back to so let's circle it back to sex crimes and offenses, right?
Sure.
We have different states with different rules on the age of consent.
Right.
Some is 17, some
Right.
maybe 18. It varies. Like, what do you think the age of consent? So, what do you know about me in my case?
Just what you've
From what I said, what
stated in your videos so far. I've heard you tell your story before. I know that the girl that you were alleged to have committed this offense against was a year and 4 months younger than you, but it fell in an age bracket where you were over the age of consent and she was slightly under the age of consent. I mean, I don't know how close she was to turning 16 at the time. I think she was probably pretty close since you were 17.
Know what my charge was?
Yeah, it was statutory.
Yeah, touching a minor. Do you
Right.
think that's right?
Well, like I said, it sucks that, people who are just regular folks get swept up into that kind of thing. But unfortunately, for me, it's a bright red line in the sand. And if people aren't aware of that line, that's a case for more education. But
So
if
where's
you're on
that
one
bright red
side or on
line?
the other side, then unfortunately you did something wrong, and that's
So
the
where
way it
should
is
that
because
bright
you
red
can't.
line be then? Who's to
Well,
say?
I mean, if I think that I haven't investigated. So this took place in Michigan. I do know that, and so I don't know exactly what the Michigan law is, but I do know that if if there's like more than, I think that in Kentucky it's like a 36-month gap in age between two minors, right? The older can be charged with statutory rape, and not a lot of people are aware of that, right? A lot of people think that if you're both under 18, then it's all good, but yeah, there's a range there where you're not allowed to um, have sexual contact. And, like I explained earlier, it sucks that you were, drawn into this, and you don't strike me as a bad guy, but, that's a case for more education, as I've said, more, informing kids that, hey, you cannot carry on these relationships with someone who's younger than you if you are at a certain age. And there needs to be more guidance and whatnot to keep people out of these situations. But, you know, in this in the case of, in my case in Kentucky, if it's a bright red line at 36 months, right? If you are over that, then you cannot, have intercourse with someone who is under that, right? And that's the line in the sand. And the more you try to say, oh, well, it's not that bad, it was only, they're both just kids and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, I mean, that's not for me to adjudicate. The law is the law, and you gotta follow it. And,
The law's
ignorance of the
right.
law, in my opinion, is no excuse.
The law's
So,
always right. All right. So do
yeah,
you feel individuals that's just under the legal age, whatever that legal age may be, since it varies from state to state, if they lie about their age to encounter someone of an older status, should they
right.
be equally charged or punished of a crime if charges is pressed on one of their peers because of the state or their parents?
Are you saying that the person who is older should they be charged in that
Oh,
situation?
what I'm saying is, I'm asking, do you feel that it's just if someone, an individual is just under the legal age that actually lie about their age to have an engagement with someone of an older status, should they
Right.
be equally punished if charges are pressed on one of their peers due to the state or angry parent? Should both of
I
them?
see. I see.
Mhm.
Okay. Yeah, now I understand. Yeah, now I understand your question. Honestly, I don't know. I would lean towards yes, but I'm not sure what that punishment should be. Um, but again, that's where you have to take it case by case. I mean, if you're talking about, and again, it depends on what the age gap is. And I mean, there's so many variables that you have to parse. I
A
mean,
year and 4 months.
you can lay out, well, I mean, you can lay out a bunch of situations where the person who is younger would be at fault, right? And where the person who is older has no idea what's going on. But again, I don't know. Absent, you would have to look at the individual circumstances that are surrounding each case. You'd have to take it on a case by case basis. But yeah, but yes, to answer your question, yeah, I agree. I would lean towards yes, that person should be punished or charged if they're going to be, misleading people in that way. In the same way that I think that, sex workers who continue to work despite being positive for HIV should be charged with, in my opinion, first degree attempted murder. So
Yeah,
yeah,
I mean, I
that's
agree.
where I come down on it.
If
Yeah,
you giving people something that they can't get rid of that will take your life, I
right,
believe you should also be charged. But I do
right,
disagree that sex work should be criminally prosecuted.
right,
But that's just my personal opinion. But if you out giving diseases, then I do think it should be some repercussions. Do you
right.
feel the state or parents should pursue charges on an individual that was older than their kid if their child was the one pursuing somebody else? Because again, you have peers, you have people that is literally in high school together. I'm talking about 10th grader, 11th grader. And yet, you have kids being kids, experiencing life however they experience life, and they are growing from life by learning, by making their own choices and decisions when nobody around.
Right.
Do you think that parents, like, do you feel the state or parents should pursue charges on individuals because their kids may be, a little fast, I should say?
Right. Yeah. Correct. Yeah. And I get that. So again, it's so hard to, you know, take a situation like what you've laid out and say, one size fits all. We should charge the person in every case in what you just laid out. Um, Generally, I would lean towards. See, that's difficult to say, but I would say that that person should not be charged, and here's why. The person who's older, it's incumbent on them to understand that, even 5 years, especially, or 2 years, right? It may not be that significant when you're both 60 and 62, right? But it is very significant when you are in your formative years, right? And so if you're talking about, let's say, a 24-year-old and a 17-year-old who's in a bar, has a fake ID, stuff happens, and now they want the person charged and convicted for a sex crime, right? If you're talking about a situation where that 24-year-old simply didn't ask the age because he just assumed that they were over the limit, again, I think you have to take it case by case and look at the circumstances that would apply and determine what punishment would be appropriate. But as a general rule, I think that the older person bears more responsibility for ensuring their own safety and the safety of that person, right? Because they are more experienced, they're more wise, they understand what's going on. But if they were truly misled and it was truly an accident, I don't think that there's a case that you can make for putting them on the sex offender registry for the rest of their life, right? I don't think that's fair. I don't think that's just. But again, you would have to prove that, and you've got a tough bar to clear, considering you're older and again more experienced and more mature and more versed in those kinds of situations. So that would be what I would say. So yeah, to answer your question, maybe maybe I could agree with what you're saying, but definitely not in all cases. So yeah,
Do you
that would
think
be my
people lie
response.
about rape?
What is it?
Do you think people lie about rape?
Lie about their age?
No, do you think people lie about rape?
Lie about race?
Rape.
Rape. Oh, yeah. I mean, there's false rape allegations all the time.
And it's so hard to prove that, right? Because everybody's
Right.
so like, if somebody say rape, everybody gets up in arms. Everybody,
Right.
like it
Sure.
pisses everybody off.
It's
And
one of the most powerful words in the English language.
it is.
So, in terms of evoking a reaction, yeah. So I agree with you. And for the people and for the guys who get falsely accused of, or women, I'm not saying that it's exclusive to men, but the vast majority of the time, the men are the perpetrators, and that really stinks for men who have, because the accusation does it, right? It's not even if you get convicted. Once you get accused, right, everyone is going to
right
look at you sideways, and you'll never get the benefit of the doubt again. That stinks, right? That's really difficult to come back from. And in my opinion, I think that women who make false rape accusations should face the exact same amount of prison time as the man would have had he been convicted, right? Unfortunately, we're probably never going to get that, but yeah, I mean, people who make false allegations, I'm not a fan of that. Yeah, not at all. So you and I are in agreement there. Yes, I definitely believe that people make false allegations of rape. So yeah, we have common ground there.
And I'm about to ask you a question you kind of touched on in the beginning. But for clarity, do you think the Sex Offender Registry create a safer community environment?
Yes, I actually do believe that it does. I don't think that the registry in and of itself, having their names and addresses and aliases, like what Canada does is their sex offender registry is anonymous, right? It's not publicly accessible, right? I do believe that monitoring and by the police and knowing where former offenders live is important. I think we need that. Whether or not it needs to be public, I mean, you could make a case that it doesn't need to be, and I'd be open to that. I'd be willing to hear that. I'd be willing to hear your argument, and if it's compelling, then I would side with you. But there needs to be some sort of monitoring and tracking system that's in place, and whatever that takes the form of, whether it be a public-facing registry or something that only the police can access, I really don't know. But there needs to be some sort of monitoring in place. So yeah.
Yeah.
I do believe
Well,
that it creates safer communities.
I believe that we need to make some significant changes to the sex offender registry. They like we have tendencies to just clump everybody together. You have a sex charge, regardless of how you got that charge, everybody get lumped into the same registry bubble. And I think it's unfair.
Right.
Again, you have people that get caught up into the system because somebody misrepresented their age. You have somebody that was caught into
Right.
the system because somebody snuck out the house, whatever, it's all sorts of reasons that people get placed on the registry that you should not have to suffer for, being a kid for the rest of your life because of somebody's angry parent, or a lie. But
right.
beyond that, let me ask you, do you think it should be a registry for individuals that have one too many guns?
No, I don't believe that. I'm a strong 2A supporter. So yeah, I'm not a fan of that.
So you don't think it's a danger of, somebody's collecting hundreds of guns, stockpiling in the basement? You don't think it should be a registry for that?
No, I don't believe that.
So
And
you think
here's why:
sex offender?
there's nothing illegal about owning firearms, right? And owning a ton of firearms. There's no limit on the number of guns that you can own in the United States. So no, I don't believe there should be a registry for that. I know that they were trying to pass a bill that would create a national gun registry, where right now, if you have a gun and someone finds that gun and they take the serial number and they trace it, it traces back to the gun shop where you bought the gun. It doesn't trace back to you, which is very important. You don't want the government to be able to track your guns because then they know exactly where to go if they want to take your guns, right? So you don't want that. So no, I don't agree with that, and I also don't believe that a person owning guns is a threat to public safety in the same way that having someone who's committed a sex crime, particularly violent offenders. I mean, I understand that
Or
there's people that get caught up in the
maybe
system unfairly, but there are also people who are lifelong serial predators, and those people need to be aware of where they're living, and the police need to be able to monitor them because that is a threat to public safety. I mean, yeah.
So
I'm not talking about all cases. I'm not lumping all sex offenders into one basket. I understand that there are situations like yours, and I sympathize if you're telling the truth. But again, I have to reserve my judgment and err on the side of safety for the community.
let me ask you this. So from what I'm getting out of you and your answers, what's right is whatever the law say. So if the law say this is law, then to you, that is right. Was law is right?
Yes.
Okay,
Well,
so now if the law states that it's illegal to own more than 10 guns, do you think it should be a registry for gun owners then? Would it be right? And I'm
it
asking,
depends on what you mean by registry. If it's illegal for people to own more than 10 guns, then hypothetically in your scenario, then if they own more than 10 guns, well then that would be a violation of the law and they should have to go to jail. But
should it be a registry?
as far as the registry goes, I don't even know what that would look like. I think you're trying to conflate two different ideas, and they're not even remotely comparable.
Yeah, no, I'm asking for a purpose here, and the way you crafting the answers is, what's law is right, and we all know that just because something is law does not make it right. So you saying that because this is law, then yes, people should have to register, because it's law. It's law that this is the age. So since this person was 16 and under and you were 17, it's law. So yes, you should have to register. So now I'm asking you, if it was law, that it will be a violation of the law to have more than 10 guns, and they said you would have to register over 10 guns. You would have to actually register like a sex offender online and say, at my house, I have more than 10 guns, whatever these guns may be. Would you agree with it? I'm going somewhere with this.
Would I agree with?
Would you
I
agree
agree
with it if
that?
it was law?
So, okay, I think I'm kind of understanding your question, but are you saying that if someone owns more than 10 guns, then they are in violation of the law? They would have to go to prison and then afterward register as someone who owned more than 10 guns. Is that what you're saying? Because I think you're trying to analogize it to the Sex Offender Registry, and that's the only way you can make the analogy work.
Let me change the question for you.
Comparable.
Let me change the question. Do you think, okay, should it be a registry for people that have incurable diseases or infections like HIV, AIDS? Should it be a registry for those people?
Well, no, because it's not a crime to have HIV or AIDS or any other incurable disease.
But
so,
do you
no,
think
I would argue no.
So people with AIDS and HIV is not a danger to the community if they're not disclosing that they have AIDS and HIV, but yet.
Well, I mean, we already have those dangers addressed in other laws. If you have sex with someone when you're HIV positive and you are aware of your HIV positive status, as I previously stated, that's a crime, right? But having HIV in and of itself is not a crime, right? It's not a crime to have, any kind of autoimmune deficiency syndrome. Right?
I'm asking you, should it be a
registry? Or autoimmune disorder. I'm sorry?
Should it be a registry for that?
No, I don't believe that. Not at all. I don't think there should be a registry for that. That would tread on a lot of civil liberties. That would create that would probably be, it'd be unconstitutional, in my opinion. That would violate the Fourth Amendment and the 14th Amendment. Yeah.
But it should be a registry for people that's placed on a sex offender registry because of an angry parent.
Should there be a separate registry for those people?
No, should they be on a registry?
Well, again, when you say because of an angry parent, you're ignoring half of the story, right? You're ignoring the actual important.
What the law say?
There's been a lot of parents that have been angry at ex-boyfriends, right? But you don't see all of those ex-boyfriends being put on the registry. So you don't get put on the registry because of an angry parent. There's a whole process that needs to be followed, right? And you're ignoring, the court mandated psychological evaluation that I'm sure you underwent. You're ignoring the caseworkers that most likely worked on your case. You're ignoring all of the things that went on behind the scenes before you ever got put on the sex offender registry. And it's a long, drawn out process, right? And I'm aware of this because my dad actually worked in the court system in some capacity. So, I know what it looks like before they actually put a person on the sex offender registry. And it's not just people decided one day, oh, we're going to put, Rashawn C. Evans on the sex offender registry. So if all of that came about because of something that was unfair and was out of your control, that sucks. Again, as I've explained, I'm not passing judgment on you. I'm not saying that you absolutely 100%, I know for a fact, deserve to be punished in this way. I'm saying I don't know, and I'm reserving judgment until the truth actually comes out. And the only thing that's going to do it for me, frankly, is judicial dismissal, right? Where you're taken off the registry and it's removed from your record, right? Which would be great. I'd love that for you. But again, I have to withhold judgment until that happens.
So right? the focal point of my question, is we have a sex offender registry. You stated that the sex offender registry, you believe it keep community safe, and we should know where these people at because we are a danger to society or people with or have sex offenses. And I get you have people, if you are somebody who commit sex offense, like if you some kind of serial predator, we may need to know where you are. Now I ask you, people that may have one too many guns, should it be a registry for that? Because you could also be a danger to society, I can't even count how many
Could being the key
registries
word,
we had.
right? Until you actually go
Then
out and
I asked
commit a
you, should it
crime
be
with
a,
that one
hold
too
on,
many
wait,
guns.
30 seconds. Then I asked you, should it be a registry for people who have STDs, I'll say, that you cannot get rid of, that you could actually die from? Should it be a registry for that to keep communities safe? And you said no as well. So I'm trying to figure out, how do you justify a registry for all here, but not a registry for people who can kill you through a virus you can't get rid of, or somebody that could actually just walk out the house and shoot up the fucking block? Excuse my language.
Sure. Yeah, so my rationale for that is until they have proven themselves, that gun owner is a law-abiding citizen up until the point that he walks out and shoots up an entire block, as you said. That person with HIV is a law-abiding citizen up until the point where they go out and knowingly spread HIV. Neither of them have done that, therefore they should not be on a registry. The thing about the Sex Offender Registry is that people on it have already demonstrated that they have committed a very vile crime that follows that victim for the rest of their life, right? And they have already demonstrated that they will do this. So to avoid, hang on, let me finish. So to avoid having a situation where there is an exponential growth where you know a person abuses someone else and then that person takes that abuse and externalizes it onto some other child by abusing them, right? And it just grows like a spider web. We have to stop it in its tracks. And one of the tools that we use to do that is the Sex Offender Registry, right? And it may not be fair in all cases. And I'm 100% willing to acknowledge that your story is plausible, and I've heard of stories like that before, and it stinks, but it's not going to cause me to rethink my views about the Sex Offender Registry as a whole, because I do think that it is very necessary and vital, in fact, to have that tool.
Do you think people who lie about rape should be on the registry?
Lie about rape should be on the registry.
Do you think?
Well, again, the registry is for a very specific thing. It's for people who commit sex crimes, right? And so again, it involves touching another person. It's a physical act, right? And so I think that a person who's accused of rape should be charged with a crime, but you know, I don't think that they should be on the registry, because that's not really what the registry was designed. That's not the kind of behavior that the registry is designed to control, right? The registry is designed to control new offending behavior of a sexual nature, right? So I think that people who falsely accuse someone of rape should probably go to prison, but it'd be pointless and a waste of resources, frankly, to put them on the registry. That'd be a waste of taxpayer money to monitor them. So
I have two more
since
questions.
they haven't demonstrated that they're willing to rape someone or do whatever, commit.
I'm enjoying the conversation, honestly. I have two more questions for you, and I'll let you go. What do you think?
No, go ahead.
What do you think should be the age of consent?
The age of consent, 18. In all cases, I think that if you're old enough to vote, then you're old enough to give consent. I know that in Michigan, I think in Wisconsin it's 18, but most jurisdictions have lowered it to 16. I think that's a big mistake, because again, it leads to the kind of situations that you've unfortunately found yourself in, where you've got young kids who think that they're not doing anything wrong, and then all of a sudden their life gets turned upside down because of this. And so that's why I think that the age of consent should be 18, because then it eliminates all of that wiggle room that people have, and all of that all those gray areas just are immediately dissipated by raising it to 18. So that's what I believe. So
do you have a criminal record, Sam?
I do not know.
I figured you was gonna say no. Well, my last question. I don't know how much time you have to actually read books, but within the last 72 hours, I just became an Audible book author. If you can, go check my book out, Stolen Identity, on Audible. It's on iBooks, or visit the website purejustice.org and get a hard copy of my autobiography. I would love to send you an autographed, personalized copy, and that's pretty much it for me. Did you want to say anything else before I close off?
No, I really enjoyed the conversation. It was very thought-provoking, and I appreciate you having me on. So
thank you, Sam.